It's 2022. You stumbled across a hidden VHS tape that contained an investigation by the FBI about an innocent unreleased game that hid a creepy dark experiment that caused the death of one of its players. For some reason, this was kept from the public. And in this video, we'll be deep diving into the Valle Verde ARG. I'm Sir Chris, I explore the internet and I make videos about it. Let's go. Valle Verde is an ARG made by Alluvium, and it starts with a humble vlog. In it, the owner of the channel says that he found a small pile of moved dirt on a forest near a park in Buenos Aires, which had a red ribbon sticking out of the dirt and a mini statue. 1 week later, he came back with a shovel just to excavate and find out that that ribbon was attached to a metal box, and inside lied a VHS tape. Upon watching, right off the gate, we are informed that the tape was an investigation on an unreleased video game called Valle Verde that was being held by two FBI agents, Robert Saturn and Pablo Gutierrez, in February of 1997. Upon starting a new game, we can notice an ominous name of a device called TH-Brain. Upon creating his own character, our player went to the village debug Shima, where there we meet two residents, Bobson the Old Guy and Foxo the Mayor. Foxo authenticates the player's documents, tells him about the knowledge armband, and gives him a house from a previous resident who for some reason left and never came back. And this is where the game begins to show its weird side. Foxo introduces us to other players: Jansuk from Georgia, Kazuya from Japan, Oliver from Ireland, Chloe from France, and Matthias from Argentina. Something is not right with those players, but for now, we move on to the less important residents: Ito the museum guy, Dr. Nito the robot scientist, Isaac, Nito's robot, and later Pietro, the priest. As a nice guy, Foxo gives the player 100 coins, before instantly making him broke. I'm loving this guy already. This is where the investigation begins to show the various anomalies this game has. On the 14th of February of 1997, the game generated a disturbing level. The first section of the level contains several pieces of cake, while in the background, someone can be heard pouring a drink and disgusting sounds of what I think is meat. The second section was something close to a Dreamcore level, with eyes in the sky and giant statues constantly looking at the player. The third section had piles of coins and paintings, while the sound of money and cash registers can be heard. And now, one of the most unnerving ones. In the fourth section, a baby can be heard. Later, blood falls from the sky and a jumpscare appears. Now, several other babies show up and our player runs away, only to realize that there, he was being chased by a gloved hand with a giant forceps. This obviously being about abortion. The fifth section had a lot of electronics, with the music in the background talking about a woman who was lazy. And while trying to move on to the next section, we see a mysterious character. I truly don't know if this character is even part of the story or is just there for disturbing purposes. The sixth had a big statue oppressing the smaller ones, while in the background we could hear Oppenheimer saying, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds," a quote said after the first atomic bomb was detonated. And last but not least, a lot of statues looking in the mirror before a gate shows up, which leads the player to the church. This anomaly is very straightforward: the 7 deadly sins. In the second anomaly, Matthias was stuck. Upon asking for help, both have a conversation that gives us a little insight into what was going on. Right off the bat, Matthias asked if the player was with the agents, where was Chloe, what was happening, and he wanted to speak to his mom and to someone named Kunomochi, only for the player to type, "He is no longer working for us," and with Matthias not being able to leave the game for some reason. This interaction alone gave us a lot of questions and information. What did he mean by agents? We know that this game is being investigated by FBI agents, but Mr. Kunomochi was nowhere mentioned, and I think that Matthias had no way to know that the game was being investigated in the first place. I suppose that Kunomochi is somehow related to this game. What happened to Chloe? In fact, where are the other players? And why can't Matthias leave this game? We will only figure it out if we continue. This game has a ton of anomalies, so I'll be speedrunning the least important while diving deeper into the most important ones. The third anomaly simply shows an unscripted action by the priest. The fourth shows a statue changing when no one is directly looking. The fifth shows a statue that appears out of nowhere. And in the sixth anomaly, it shows us a generated level outside the normal route. 3 NPCs are seen walking through the gap between 2 buildings, and the investigator follows, only to discover some sort of portal in the middle of 4 pillars and a tree. In the portal, the following words were written in French: liberty, equality, and fraternity, the French motto. Passing through the portal, the player finds himself in the middle of a grey world that later is called Alamo. In the middle of the fog, several animal statues can be seen looking to the middle. On closer inspection, the player walks into the middle of the statues, but little did he know that he was exactly where the entity wanted him to be. After the jump scare, the game for an anonymous reason tells him to turn on the console on the 22nd of March. Weird. The 7th anomaly shows a dialogue of a character named the Accuser, who tells the player to eat the various fruits that were under a tree. When he does so, the Accuser says,
"What have you done? Look at what you've done, imbecile. Why are you just standing there? Take as many fruits as you can. You know you'll die, right? If you're up to the neck, why don't you keep going down?
Do you have something else than the consolation of this earth?
Take what you can. You are already stained, aren't you? Your destiny is sealed."
And now after taking the fruit, our character is seen walking away from the gates that were once open, only to now notice that on top of it, it had an accurate depiction of a cherubim that was now protecting the gates. This is with no shadow of a doubt the representation of what happened in the Garden of Eden. The player ate the fruit of knowledge, and for that, he got expelled from the Garden of Eden. But now, upon walking closer to the gate, the player gets absolutely smoked. And now, he finds himself in a weird-looking level. There, the player gets a mission from Ito, who was looking kinda demonic. His mission was to collect 10 faces before the carnival, before being informed that this mission was auto-generated. In that weird level, the investigator also finds Matthias' house, that was somehow intact. Upon entering, a music about death can be heard, and here we notice that Matthias is religious, so much so that in his room, the player obtains the Divine Mercy. The second video begins where we left off. Our player leaves his house on the 24th, only to go back to the gate with the cherubim. Upon giving the cherubim the Divine Mercy, the player is finally allowed into heaven. Or at least that's what I thought, because he was too tall to pass through the frame. Maybe another time. The 8th anomaly happens again in the Alamo area. Here, we understand that this level is divided into 5 zones: Charlie, Oscar, Kilo, Juliet, and Alpha, where our player is currently in. Upon using the camera from the debug menu, we can notice that the Alpha zone had more than meets the eye. Even had an angel NPC being consumed by these weird transparent parasites, and the player gets caught again. In the 9th anomaly, upon inspecting a painting, the game shows a glimpse of the betrayer's fate. That with the previous hints that we received, this can only be about hell. In the 10th anomaly, the player shrinks and finally passes through the frame. Now at the church, an unscripted interaction with the priest happens, where Pietro directly tells Pablo, one of the investigators, a secret. In what I believe to be what's going to happen on the 22nd of March, due to its secrecy and the following phrases: "Peace be with you, its dissemination will be left in our hands," and due to the 2 compasses that actually were rosaries, that upon giving one of those to Matthias, he was finally freed. In the 11th anomaly, here's where things take a dark turn. Upon teleporting to an unknown area, the player finds a weird character that goes by the name Not, or maybe the smiling one as mentioned by Foxo, we don't know yet. During a conversation, several things are finally revealed. Not is actually the AI used in the game. He creates and sees everything that happens within the game. He previously spoke all languages within the game, but because of their unbearable screams, Not has disconnected himself from the other models, except for the Spanish one. Not didn't want to be found because they wanted to make him the subject of a ceremony, just like they did to the children. Was he referring to the other players? If so, that answers why we haven't seen them. Not even points out that the player has watched this ceremony before, implying that Pablo, or someone with the same character as Pablo, has seen this ceremony before. It kinda makes sense, especially because his name is Test05, implying that maybe there were 4 other players who tested the game before. And after the AI felt uncomfortable, we realized that the AI had developed its own personality and opinions. I don't like where this is going. The 12th anomaly says that the game has 3 libraries that contain games, audios, and books. The largest being the one in Valle Verde with 8,353 files. Upon trying out one of the games, the TH brain begins to lose connection. This is where all hell breaks loose. Instantly the game changes its own textures to the TH brain logo. Upon walking to the void, we see several creepy faces around a demonic statue. Upon closer inspection, the player's presence awakens a demon, who appears, vomits a parasite that consumes the player's character, causing the game to crash. The 13th anomaly is a program that showed up on Matthias' family television about the chaos of man versus the chaos of God. How man's chaos always gets corrected by God's chaos, as happened in the flood. This program would end by saying that a catastrophe will eventually come. An angel. The 14th anomaly is about Isaac's bugged sprite, and in the 15th anomaly, we are back again in Alamo. Despite the previous creepy creature zooming around, this time, the player was ready. Following the compass, the player finds a nearby workshop. Inside, the investigator meets a mysterious character, the witch. The witch, in a cryptic way, tells him that in that workshop, they collect data, and there the witch can see the future, with the only available example being of the downfall of Buenos Aires, an event that hasn't yet happened. And while exploring, he finds a weird zone that had a nest and a caged angel. Now the moment you have been waiting for, the event of March 22nd. Instantly, the player notices that the village is now divided, with several masked members holding a golden calf, and now, an altar is in the middle. Blood and a large flag of Argentina can be seen. Next to it, Foxo, Dr. Nito, and Hiro are also seen. And at 3:32 AM, the ceremony begins. In the ceremony, we realize that the demon was called Prometheus, a Greek titan who stole the fire of gods to give to humans. And we also realize that it was not the first time that the village had failed with the sacrifices, where this time they wanted to sacrifice Isaac because they needed more time. It worked previously, but not this time. The demon ends up taking Dr. Nito as the promised offering, burning his entire body and making it rain with his own blood. And now with Nito's sacrifice, the doomsday clock is closer to midnight. In the 17th anomaly, it shows us another game that is corrupted because of the connection. The character falls into the Charlie zone in Alamo, where several robots are seen near an abomination. While trying to shoot it, the player gets killed and the game restarts. And in the last time, the player falls from the sky again and dies in front of a mysterious building, and the game crashes. 12 days after the ceremony, we eventually see the cult outside the church, surrounding the priest and Matthias, who are both inside a barrier with a cherubim on top of it. The player here receives a mission from Foxo, who deceives him, saying that the church will eventually fall for being too old, the only salvation being to add 4 more pillars. Foxo tells the player to use the 2 pieces of ruler inside the church, in which it does so, thus bringing the downfall of the church.
Ieri mattina io sono andato alla Sistina a votare tranquillamente. Mai avrei immaginato quello che stava per succedere.
As crowds gather before the Vatican in St. Peter's Square, the almost incredible news is released to the world. Pope John Paul I is dead. The announcement is received with a mixture of disbelief, shock, and sadness. John Paul had won the hearts of Catholics and non-Catholics throughout the world, during one of the shortest reigns in papal history. Hailed as a pope of the people, John Paul's death was as dramatic and unexpected as his election 33 days earlier. 33 days earlier. 33 days earlier. 33...
The last sentences was about the death of Pope John Paul I, 33 days later, after becoming the head of the Catholic Church and the Vatican City. His death to this day is still filled with different theories, such as an assassination, a poisoning, or even a cult, being his cause of death a cardiac arrest. The aftermath of the decision caused the cross to be changed to a golden globe, in which the cult was now building up a structure for the obelisk, but Matthias and Pietro remained untouched. And it ends with the following sentence. The Ark was able to carry 8 people to salvation. This tribulation too shall pass. And with an interview with Fulton Sheen, an archbishop, who looks identical to Pietro. Okay, this is getting a little bit confusing. Let's recap. Valle Verde is an unreleased game for PS1 that was being investigated by the FBI in 1997. The game showed various problems with its AI. These problems going as far as generating new levels, unscripted interactions or lines, and even a demonic entity that requires sacrifices and corrupts data, all in the name of knowledge and progress. Not, in a conversation with Pablo, confirmed that the cult wanted to make the AI the subject of ceremony, thus forcing Not to distance himself from the NPCs. Also, the AI had disconnected itself from other languages because of the player's unbearable screams. Why and what were they screaming? And he's not the smiling one? With the sacrifice on the 22nd of March, plus the fact that we don't see the players anywhere except Matthias, And the fact that Isaac was not the first failed sacrifice makes me question, how long has this been going? This is where the fog finally clears up. In the most recent upload, we get a lot of the backstory about this video game and the companies involved. Sit tight, it's gonna be long. In the 17 pages, they open with the information that one of the 5 participants of a study made by SIST, where Kunimochi was the main head, died of a heart attack, that later we learned that it was Jansug. This incident eventually reaches the ears of the United States because of an FBI agent called Johnny Rayama. The 5 participants were still connected to the machine, in which both teams have not found a way to safely disconnect them. 2 of the participants, Kazuya Murakami and Oliver O'Reilly, for an unknown reason, are physically dying, even though the TH brain says the opposite. From here onwards, let's go from the beginning. In 1993, Dr. Kunimochi began a new study called DPMSL, a study in which the Japanese government denied funding due to a growing distrust towards Kunimochi's judgment after his daughter's death in 1989. In which testimonies say that he came back with controversial ideas. The study was based on studying the brainwaves and collecting neural information through less intrusive methods, where the participants were sedated and connected to a device that would read neural information, encode, and store it in its database. Due to lack of income, the team was forced to go after private investors, where one of them was a video game company, Onyxware, who after seeing the forecast results of the study, wanted Kunimochi to make a device that would help and enhance the PS1 computing power for their upcoming game, Valle Verde. With that, TH Brain was created, a device that would improve the computing power of PS1 through AI that would generate audios, texts, missions, and even animations. But despite all the effort, the team and the investors were still skeptical of its capabilities. This made Kunimochi ramp up the method to something extremely intrusive, a surgical procedure where the machine would be directly connected to the victim's frontal lobe, proving to be 3 times more effective. This even caused Kunimochi to extend the recruitment to foreign countries, thus getting the main cast that we have right now: Oliver, Matthias, Kazuya, Chloe, and Jensung. But that procedure came with a horrible cost, exhausting sessions, and even death. Although exhausting, the players would be able to experience the video game while unconscious, as if it was nothing more than a realistic dream. Don't get it wrong, the company really cared for the subjects, even rigorously monitoring their state and surgeries to make sure that nothing bad happens. Everything was going smoothly until the 3rd session, where 2 hours and 16 minutes into the session, Jensung out of nowhere started suffering from a fatal arrhythmia. As much as the team had done everything to try to save him, the machine in charge of removing the patient safely from the game denied the request because it would cause a great risk to the rest. Jensung died 3 minutes later, but an unforeseen event happened. His brain somehow remained active for 9 more minutes. This is where the series throws us a curveball. In one of the meetings, Gustav, one of the main investors who suggested Jensung, offered to cover all the study with one condition: to do a test on a dying subject, since Gustav wanted to visualize life after death. This turns even more darker when we realize that 4 of the participants have some sort of disability. Chloe suffers from non-small cell lung cancer, Matthias is deaf-mute, Kazuya has malformations caused by radiation exposure, and Jensung had HCM. In general, very sensitive people. Kunimochi, even though uncomfortable with the idea, accepted it because he thought that that would be temporary, and that Gustav would come to his senses and abandon this stupid idea. He was so wrong. Not only did Gustav become more persistent, but he would also threaten several times to withdraw funds, thus making Kunimochi add the following condition: if the machine notices that one of the participants is dying, to lock itself, extend the brain's lifespan to suck every single data possible, and use it, just to please Gustav. But here's the thing, this instruction apparently was not active at the time of Jensung's death, leaving us with only 2 options: either Kunimochi is lying, or the machine was locked because of Oliver and Kazuya, who were showing signs of vital decline. What caused this? From 4 participants, only 2 began to show a slow vital decline, leaving us only with possibilities. Who knows, maybe Jensung was attacked by one of the creatures that scared them so much that it caused a heart attack. Meanwhile, Kazuya and Oliver are slowly dying, but their brain remains very active. Were they sacrificed like Dr. Nito? Nevertheless, this affected Kunimochi deeply, a man who after his daughter's death simply wanted to use technology to artificially expand life expectancy and consciousness. And look what it brought him. And these 17 pages end with the fact that the doctor had previously met a cult and that he was followed. Closing thoughts. I don't have to tell you that this is the best ARG I've seen so far. And I haven't seen a lot of them, so enough glazing. What is going on in Valle Verde? Valle Verde is an investigation into an unreleased video game produced by Onyxware with the help of an external device made by SIST. That same external device is fed by the neural collection of 5 participants, where it caused one death and is slowly taking the life of Oliver and Kazuya. The rest of the patients are now stuck for an undetermined amount of time in Valle Verde. This leaves me with a few questions. Were they sacrificed by the cult? Were they attacked? Or are they being slowly consumed by the same parasite that ate the angel? What connection does Kunomochi have with the cult? And what really provoked Jansung's death? I can't give an exact answer, but I believe that what we saw in these few videos was the neural information of Matthias. Matthias was a religious child, so it would make sense that most of the anomalies seen while he was online were about what he feared the most. Evilness, sin, sacrifices, demons, etc. Especially since fear is known to activate a lot of neurons around the brain. I forgot to tell you that Matthias is just 8 years old. That would also explain why Pietro, the priest, looks identical to Fulton Sheen. Maybe he was Matthias' idol. What if the next episode shows us a different playthrough with different anomalies and different visions? That would be so fucking cool. I believe that every single NPC in the town has their own level of consciousness. That would explain why the NPCs wanted to sacrifice Nod to Prometheus, the father of knowledge, since to a robot, knowledge is the way and knowledge is God. But here, we are left in the dark for now. And this was Valle Verde. If you want to see another ARG, why not Shipwrecked 64? I'm really proud of that one, honestly. A huge thanks to all Patreon support upon, and you viewer. Till next time, take care my friend.